Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! ¡Golazo!
The world of football with a soccer perspective. This is Soccer Today with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee, live on the Sports Podcasting Network.
And we are live. Good day, good night. Welcome to Soccer Today. Duane Rollins on the line with myself, Kevin Laramee. Duane is on assignment. If you hear some ambient noise, where Duane is on location, as we say in the industry. Duane, good morning.
Good morning from lovely, frigid. Is there downtown in Etobicoke? I don't know. I'm in Etobicoke, guys.
Well, it could be better.
Really,
you could be in Russia in like the region of Saka, which was minus 67 degrees last night.
it's pretty crisp here in Etobicoke, which those of you who don't know, Etobicoke is what's part of Toronto. So I'm still in Toronto. I'm just really in the west side of it.
Yeah, it's part of the GTA, you know, so it kind of is fitting. Let's start talking about today, but by just a little update from yesterday. We've talked about the Chris Mavinga situation yesterday, and it's something that's been brewing not just yesterday, Duane. It's been like a week. It's been a week. I've been receiving messages from Montreal fans, Mr. Foot the Foot, how you doing? A lot of people sending us messages saying, talk about Mavinga. We want him here. We need to show him interest, and he doesn't turn it down. He actually plays the game too, sending us messages as well by Chris Mavinga on social media. So that discussion has been going on for a day or for like a week. But yesterday, after a few hours, after the morning, Chris Mavinga's few answers on social media, the situation kind of has been diffused a bit.
Yeah, I mean, for those who don't know, what he did is he removed Toronto FC from his social media down to his bio, right? Like it used to say, defender for Toronto FC. So everyone was like, woo, and then they looked back at his tweets. They read some of the interactions he was having with Impact fans, which if you read them carefully,
it's all tongue-in-cheek. That's the thing. It's hard to convey the tongue-in-cheek outside of the wink and a smiley face, but that's what it was.
It kind of reminded me, sometimes where you're flirting with someone and you think maybe, I'm going to be able to take this to the next stage. But they were just kind of teasing with you and having a little fun with you. Yeah, that's kind of what I got out of it, but that might be my Toronto perspective coming out. But yeah, nonetheless.
So who's feeling embarrassed this morning? Huh? Who?
But then, yeah.
Who's feeling embarrassed? Mavinga or the Impact fan like, we got played?
I think that the Impact themselves don't really care. I think some Impact fans were kind of mad at themselves that they got excited about a TFC player, and now they have to go back to hating him again because the way this got diffused is about 4 o'clock yesterday. Chris Mavinga put a tweet out, which was simply him, I think at the MLS Cup final. Saw that picture of him in a TFC jersey anyway, and it just said sued and put an arrow and pointed to the picture. So I think that sort of suggests that and the fact that he's still under contract with TFC, that there might not be any there. But nonetheless, Mavinga-Gate, this is how TFC's off-season is going right now, though, is nothing is happening. So this little tiny social media thing is getting all the attention because we're we need something to panic about, I guess.
At least you won the cup, Here, we haven't won anything, and we've been waiting for an announcement in Montreal for weeks. It took like a month and a half before we actually got the training staff, which we all knew who were the coaches. They were here. We had pictures of them here at the airport a week before, but still took a long time for the announcement. So I totally understand the feeling. Speaking of announcement, the Tyder Zamali situation for Montreal. We've seen images already of Blair Zamali back in Bologna, back with the Bologna kid, back in Italy training, getting ready, for the international World Cup this summer, but he's getting ready to make sure he doesn't miss a step, but he's happy to be back. The thing is, this morning, it's still, the rumors and the information keeps coming out, and now it's getting more and more clear that Tyder is coming to Montreal. The Franco-Algerian might have signed a 3-year contract as a designated player, as a probably defensive midfielder, maybe a little higher, but more defensive midfielder. And he will probably be announced in the next few days. So Tyder, as a DP, in place of Blair Zamali for Montreal, looks more and more like a done deal.
Look, I know that a month or so ago, as you say, there were a lot of people that sort of were talking about this, but sort of going, trying to tone it down a little bit. And I don't know whether that was sort of tribal and stuff coming from inside the Impact front office, where they weren't sure whether this will happen or not, or what. But certainly, as you say, it seems like this might be happening now. Now, look, I have expressed my concerns about the Impact having a bit of tunnel vision in terms of where they're looking for players at the moment. I think that maybe that's something that to continue to watch because that might be an issue. But at the same time, just because they're getting players from the same kind of place, and doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be bad players. So this is one of those signings. There's a risk with any foreign signing, right? You don't know whether they're going to adjust. Molly was equal, but that's a good example. He didn't adjust because of personal reasons, right? He had to go back. So it's not always going to work, and it's not always about what's happening on the pitch. So we're not going to celebrate this one or lament it until we see it play out. But it certainly does, as you see, seem like at least there might be some news there. I guess the question I would have back to you is that the type of position that they need reinforcement in, or should they be looking elsewhere for that DP type signing?
I think it does make sense. Not necessarily the DP tag. It's just me. I'm still not convinced about where to spend your money with a DP. Like, we all aging. He's not as young as he once was. So for Marco Donadel to play 34 games plus Canadian Championship plus whatever might be a lot. So a Tider that might take over that spot, and a Donadel that's maybe an extension of Rémi Garde in that portion of the pitch, using his experience and knowledge of the game to try to better the team as a whole and not play as much. And when you have a Marco Donadel with fresh legs, you have the Montreal Impact that are actually more dangerous. So Tider, Piet could be the start. You could have a three-man rotation for those two spots. Would make sense, but still, when you're looking at the Montreal Impact and the big change of personnel after the season, you're looking at the attacking midfielder position. Do you put Piatti back there in the mindset where you put Raheem Edwards where Piatti was, and then you just find a right midfielder and maybe Ballou's that guy, and then you get so there is options depending on which player will land where, depending if Piatti goes back to the left side of the middle or in the attacking position. There's a few little change that you can do to have this roster pan out, but we're still missing a few players, and there's still going to be players that are announced in the next few days as well. But at least it's a DP to take over from Zamali, and the Montreal Impact needed to do this to make sure that the pill would be swallowed correctly by the supporters, meaning the departure of Zamali not create a controversy in Montreal more than it already has.
Fair enough. I mean, look, you get back to what you just said there, but it's not always about the goals scored. It's sometimes about the goals prevented. Michael Bradley did not score a goal for TFC last year.
But that slide against Columbus, right?
Yeah, he had the slide against Columbus, exactly, which is, Toronto's equivalent of LeBron's block, so to speak. Maybe on a little slightly lower scale, but nonetheless, without that, if Bradley doesn't make that play, TFC doesn't win the MLS Cup, right? It's that simple. Because Columbus would have scored that goal, it's almost certain they would have scored. It's a 2-on-1 with the keeper. I mean, Bono had a decent season, but he wasn't that good, right?
He's good.
So, yeah, or you look, to get it not to a TFC perspective, you look like a player like Dax McCarty, and you look at what kind of value he brings. He's not necessarily going to score a lot of goals, but he's the glue that holds teams together and sort of allows other players to move into more natural positions and excel in them. So it's difficult to measure, as you say, but certainly, we're used to seeing the DPs going towards the high-profile, high offensively oriented positions, and I still think certainly that there needs to be a little bit of attention placed on those for your DPs. But when you have three and you have these TAM signings, if you're clever with, then you can kind of afford now to look at these kind of glue players and find them at that next level. And these guys are hard to find in the world, and the guys that do it well are well respected and have long careers in certain places. Quick question: you talk about Donadel. He seems like he's part of the furniture in Montreal's sort of flat there, right? Does he lead the team in appearances now, all-time MLS? Who is the appearance leader for the Impact? Do you know offhand?
Offhand, I don't know. I would be convinced to say maybe Evan Bush. Just because of the fact
keepers,
that keepers, and he maybe didn't play a lot in the first year and year and a half. Troy Perkins and Donovan Ricketts Donovan Ricketts blast from the past this morning. Troy Perkins. Hello, Troy. It's been a long time, but we had terrible keepers in Montreal. Donovan Ricketts, so I would say Evan Bush. Marco Donadel could be that player too. Before it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if Piatti is that, as well as best maybe goal scorer for the Montreal Impact history in MLS. I think Piatti in the next year and a half, 2 years he's left in his contract, at least this year for sure. I think it's going to be Piatti, but no, it goes quickly, right? When you look at Bono, he's the winningest goalkeeper in the history of TFC. Like, sometimes it goes quick. Sometimes you're like 23 and you're already the best keeper this team ever had.
Yeah, well, wins, and so, yeah, we use the top wins leader. No, not their appearances. 99 is the top appearances for a keeper for TFC. That, of course, is Stefan Fry because he had 99 appearances, but the cup wasn't won. Anyway, that's an old joke now because they have won the cup.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and both Seattle, too. And all right, let's move over to the USL for now, Duane. It was announced earlier this morning, that the United Soccer League has full Division II sanctioning for the 2018 season by the United States Soccer Federation. We knew that they asked for it. We knew they asked for no derogation, no exemptions. So all stadiums 5,000 and over, and all the Division II requirements by USSF will need to be fulfilled by all the brand new USL teams. And there's a lot, from the Las Vegas Lights to the now brand new Birmingham Legion announced earlier today. A lot of brand new teams in USL will be playing in Division II.
Yeah, and look, I know that the usual suspects out there will be, not the website that's run by, some of my favorite female writers for talking about soccer. But
that's the unusual effort. So they have a great effort. That's
yeah, the usual suspects. I didn't want to mix them up, though, at any rate. I guess maybe I did mix it up there in my own mind. So there you go, Duane. What's that say about me? Hashtag me too. Anyway, I've lost my complete train of thoughts now, Kevin. So dig me out of my hole. Can you throw me a life preserver?
Yeah, we're talking about USL, and we're talking about...
The usual suspects are complaining about this in how it relates to the NASL. So that's going to happen. But in terms of what this means for the overall system, I mean, stability is good, and the USL has shown consistently on one thing: they're stable. This is not a league that's in danger of going under. This is not a league that is grasping for straws above its head that it can't reach. That's not an analogy. It's one I just made up. But at any rate, they're a stable league, and they provide that benefit to the system. Now, is there an argument to be made that we need like an alternative vision to the game that isn't single entity, that isn't tied into the Major League Soccer model? Sure, there is, but it has to be sustainable. It has to be a model that works. And right now, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we haven't come up with the right formula for that just yet. And the NASL is going to continue to have its struggles. But let's just focus on the USL for now. And this is a good thing because it's going to allow future growth. It's going to allow them to continue to market and to position themselves into the proper place in those markets. Now, the loss that we're seeing by this need to reach these standards, I think we can draw a straight line between some of these two teams, folding, like the Whitecaps too. It hasn't, I think, been officially announced yet, but Orlando B is no longer, I believe.
From FC Montreal on, I'm still talking about FC Montreal. It's been almost 2 years, but it's the same idea. Let's face it. Let's call a spade a spade. The MLS2 experiment in USL was a failure. Yes, you have a team like Red Bulls too, who on the pitch doing great. There was 5 people in the stands, and 3 of them were the parents of the players. So you have that aspect, and you have the aspect of money, revenue generation, and it's not making any. And if you're looking at the standalone teams, well, guess what? They might not be as good on the pitch, but everything else is done better.
Yeah, and look, I think there's been some success. I think Swope Park's a model that has worked pretty well because it's been branded slightly different. I think the biggest failure of it is the branding thing. And it's like I look at TFC2 here in the backyard, and it's still TFC2 because they want to keep that consistent branding in the market. But I think they were wrong to do so. I believe that what they should be doing, especially with the Canadian Premier League coming in, is maybe looking to buy the rights to the name Blizzard, for instance. I think someone else already has that, but like something that would be able to connect them to a different kind of market, a different sort of thing, so they have a different feel. They are moving down to Lamport Stadium this year, so they'll be downtown. So we'll see whether that helps their attendance figure. But you're right. On the two side of things, the MLS 2 side of things, it has been a struggle, to say the least, with some notable examples. And I think Swope Park is probably the best of those examples. I think the Monarchs have done pretty well as well. But you certainly, and you can't ignore what the Red Bulls have done on the pitch. They won the championship one year.
Yeah, no, exactly. They've played well. They've been coached amazingly by Willianek. So you have that aspect. That's great. Develop players. Players have made the transfer from USL to MLS with the Red Bulls. It's all well and good. Perfectly run like reserve team. But you're looking at USL who wants to be more than that. You're looking at USL with, I don't know if it still is the case, but like a year and a half ago, it was the fastest growing soccer league in the entire world. I think it's still the case because there's team popping up every single day. I'm like, oh, wow, we got a team here now. Okay, cool. The only thing that bothers me a bit with USL this year is how they separated the conferences. I feel bad for St. Louis because all the rivals, they're stuck in the East, even though they're just a few miles away. They're stuck in the East and they're stuck in the West, and it makes for rivalries that could have been not with Louisville and all those cities in the same area in the early part, the close part of the Midwest region. So you do have I feel bad for St. Louis because it could have been a better separation, but you're gonna have casualties in a geographical decision where your teams are going to play, and St. Louis is that casualty.
Yeah, for sure. And you look at when Major League Soccer, Nashville comes in. Where are you going to place Nashville? The NHL sort of has that problem with them. They've been both in the West and the East, right? So,
yeah.
And they're kind of an Eastern team. They're kind of a Western team. They're kind of a Southern team, not kind of a Southern team. They're not really a Northern team. That's what the only place they're kind of in a weird.
That's for sure.
That weird sort of dead zone that's hard to find a place geographically. So I think probably what's going to happen in Major League Soccer, I truly believe this, by the time it gets up to, I think they're heading towards 32 at the very minimum. But you'll probably get quarters. You'll get divisions rather than conferences. So 2 divisions in the East, 2 divisions in the West, similar to what you see in most of the other sports. So I think that's probably the model that they'll go to. And USL, I think USL can afford as they continue to expand. And I don't think they've ever stated an upper limit in terms of number of teams. It's the number that the markets can bear. They can go even more regional. And, ultimately, I think, and we know that the plan is to go to have that USL 3 in the next couple of years. And I think that's when you might see some of these 2 teams find the niche and find the place for them. We've had this conversation many times before, but it's worth repeating now. And I think that, when I look again in my own backyard, I think that's ultimately where they'll end up. I think that, you could see an argument to be made that, if you have TFC2 in there, maybe Rochester finds a niche at that 3 level.
Yeah,
you have
if it comes back.
Whoever else, FC Montreal might be able to come back in at that point because the travel costs would be reduced and everything else would be reduced, and they could play in the smaller stadiums and it wouldn't really matter as much anymore. So I think that, we're fumbling our way there, but ultimately we are finding the right model, I think, that works. And, is that alternative vision model the one that's going to fall by the wayside? Maybe, but the alternative vision model relies on the free market deciding things. And, unless you're going to make that argument that there's some kind of collusion there, and they do in some cases, but if you reject that, then the free market's making its choice in terms of what it wants to support. And part of the reason it wants to support USL, wants to support MLS, is because they perceive stability as a value, as something that they value and something they want. It's hard to get behind a team that you're not sure whether it or the league is going to be there next year, right?
Yeah, and not just that. If you look pragmatically at the USL since its partnership with MLS, how it has grown leaps and bounds, how it has become more viable, more solid, more sustainable financially as well, and that is in part due because of the partnership with MLS. So there's a lot of interesting aspect in the USL coming. There's a lot of roster movement in the last few days. We had Zachary Secunda on the show Monday. He used to play for FC Montreal, now playing for FC Hume City in Australia and Melbourne. Another player, Duane, last night, that announced his re-signing for a team. Another Canadian player, Masta Kacher, will be back with Colorado Springs. The Switchbacks. Masta is making a name for himself in the USL. Finalist for Goal of the Year last year, and this year will continue his rise in the North American soccer pyramid. And I wouldn't be surprised if before the end of next year, Masta gets a look a little higher up, maybe even in MLS. We'll see. But congratulations to Montrealer, Canadian soccer player Masta Kacher for his re-signing with the Colorado Switchbacks.
Fair enough. It's always good to see the Canadians land in the USL. And the USL is a valuable sort of stepping stool. Those of us that want to champion the Canadian Premier League as being a great developmental tool for Canadians, have to also recognize that it's probably going to be up at the same level as USL.
It's going to be USL Canada. So, it'll be USL Canada, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, ultimately, back in the day, I would have been fine with creating a USL division that was Canadian only, as long as there was some kind of division that allowed us to control it. This is a better model, but yeah, that level is fine for the beginning and working towards something more. So you got to celebrate when a player right now continues to play at that level.
To finish the show, Duane, I want to move to the women's spectrum for a few minutes. The National Women's Soccer League, better known as the NWSL, will have its colors draft at the end of the week. But big trade happened yesterday. Crystal Dunn of the U.S. Women's National Team, now playing for the North Carolina Courage. She was acquired by the Courage, and it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at what Crystal Dunn has done in her career, how she has been a mainstay when in college for North Carolina Tar Heels, the house that Jordan built, that baby blue house. She was a player with UNC, and she had a lot of success with UNC, and she's a name in this market that could draw more people, and it makes a lot of sense if you're the North Carolina Courage to bring her on board and have a North Carolina famous soccer player play for your team in the NWSL to start this season.
Well, for sure. I mean, beyond the marketing aspect, this is one of the best performing female players in the world over the past little while as well. Yes. And North Carolina is a club team that has done very well. It's the Austin of the NWSL, really. The championship team that moved immediately and were competitive again. Now, obviously Portland's the super team. I guess Portland would then be the TFC of the NWSL, and they're probably going to love the fact that I keep comparing them to men's teams. So I'll stop that now. I'm going to keep needing another life preserver.
Everything to TFC. Jeez, it's going to get old.
Yeah, you're right. So it's a good move for them, and it sort of illustrates their desire to look for excellence within that club and to make that club amongst the best in the NWSL year after year after year. It's kind of a unique market in the sense that it's standalone. They have a good support base there. They have a men's team as well that's sort of attached or affiliate or close by anyway, but by and large that it stands by itself, and they have a good crowd base there in that one season they've already had, and it looks like they're developing a nice little project down there. The other side of that trade was Washington giving up on her. The Spirits have had some problems of late. They continue to have some reputational issues in terms of their owners, not very popular. It's going to be a tough thing there. The Spirit are an old team, sort of within the context of women's soccer, so it'd be terrible to see them sort of drift away into irrelevance. But that's kind of troubling from the Washington Spirit sort of perspective. But great move for North Carolina, and probably a good move to have another sort of Eastern market that's stepping up to say that there could be sort of an East Portland, and maybe that's what they're looking to do. Moving from Western New York might have been what allowed that program to evolve and become maybe have the ability to become that Eastern Portland that's out there. Orlando also, I think, has some aspirations there, but Orlando continues to struggle everywhere on the soccer operations side of things. So we'll see whether they can pull that together.
Speaking of Orlando, let's finish there. Apparently it's closer and closer. Laramee Besiktas Orlando deal. Apparently it's going to be $1.5 million for Orlando. We'll see how many of how much of that amount is given back to them in allocation money. But maybe the play by Laramee last weekend actually worked, Duane.
I think, you can argue whether it was the right move long-term for his reputation, but I don't think they care anymore. And they just wanted to sort of force their hand. And once that's out there, it could have been that MLS was nickel and diming, and that they decided to put this out there so that they sort of went, look, come on. You promised us we could make this happen. Please do not stop this over $100,000 or something like that. Because ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, $100,000 is not a terrible amount of money for that type of transfer. So I'm making this number up, to be clear, but yeah, it might have been something like that. And look, I hope that he can get there, because he needs to move on from Major League Soccer, both I think from a professional standpoint and from a personal standpoint at this part. That's to say nothing. I'm not even talking about the drunk driving charge. I'm talking just about all
sort of player with his agent, how to negotiate.
it's been a frustrating sort of 6 months for Kyle Larin. National team struggles, the legal issues, now. Like, let's get him somewhere and hope that he can sort of turn it around again, because he's still really quite young and has, the potential still there. And people, I think, have soured on him a little bit, even here in Canada, and that's unfortunate, because there's still a great opportunity for him to become, a very, very large part of the John Herdman revolution, either work.
Sure, it could be a revelation. Hopefully, there is a revolution. Kyle Larin, missing sitters has been his MO lately too, especially when he was wearing the red shirt. So hopefully, when he plays for Besiktas, they don't take that red shirt off too often, and they just keep playing with that white and that black one. So maybe he's going to be able to score more goals, because Kyle Larin in the Canadian shirt hasn't produced a lot of goals in the last 2 years, especially when we needed them. But anyways, let's forget about Honduras and other country. It's been 2 years almost now since we were eliminated from the X, so I should probably move on. Speaking of moving on, we'll be back Friday with a edition of Soccer Today. Tomorrow it's 5 Rings. Duane and I will continue.
Lots to talk about this week too.
Hey, Tessa, Virtue, Scott Moyer, and
we got
flag bearer.
The continuing gymnastics issues down in the United States. We've got North Korea deciding to march as one team. So there's going to be a big show tomorrow on 5 Rings.
Yeah, big show on 5 Rings. And we're back on Friday for Soccer Today to preview the weekend, to give you the latest news in the world of football with a soccer perspective. But tomorrow, it's 5 Rings. So you can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. The show is at Soccer Today SPN. And as always, if you like the show, you like what Duane and I are doing, you want to give us a little pat in the back, a little encouragement, $1 goes a long way for that. Patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. With your help, we can continue to stay independent. And if you're following the North American soccer landscape for a little while, you know that there has been a lot of independent voices. Not a lot of them are left. We want to be one of those that are left standing. And with your help, we can assure that. Patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. $1 a month goes a long way. If everyone that listens to our show would give 50 cents, $1 a month, we would be doing this full time with amazing guests and amazing content, even more professionally produced than we can do now with your help. It's Patreon.com. That's Patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. Your help goes a long way. And as always, until next time, I'm Kevin Laramee, and have a great soccer.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.